Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hey, Todd, that's a great camera you got there.
Larry, you'll need to unmute yourself. Down at the bottom of your screen, there should be a microphone.
How's that?
Man, there's way too many moving parts.
That's a great camera you have there, Todd.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's really clear.
You know what? I painted that wall back there green, and I was playing around with Zoom, and Zoom has this feature that you can green screen different pictures.
Yeah. I made
Oh, really?
you can do that.
It's too bad. It's too bad I have those shelves and all that stuff on the wall, because I could do some really cool stuff with that green wall. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe I'll have to get a green sheet.
So we could put ourselves on a Caribbean beach or something, huh?
There you
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
Life Mastery Radio right across, the big
Yeah.
board.
Life Mastery from the Aruba studio.
There
right?
you go. Nice.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
It's pretty cool. Play around with it, Jackie. You'll see what I mean. How we doing for time, Cam?
Doing good here. Hang on.
Hey, so what happens when we do a replay? Do you replay the video or do you just replay the audio?
I just replay the audio.
Okay.
The video is online anyways. So
Right. No, I get it. I just didn't know if you did that, how you did that. We might be coming up summertime, maybe some replays. Jackie's got a couple of gigs cooking. It might be nice to take a little break for a while. And we've had some really cool guests that I think would be worth replaying, like Mark Gober, and oh yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah, I had to clear my browsing data so I can get you going here on Facebook Live.
And you start recording right out of the gate, don't you?
It's recording now. Yep. All right, stand by. Dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here. Leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day. How am I looking? I'm getting used to this camera thing. I think
Looking good.
As always, I woke up this morning and I decided it was going to be a groovy day. And so far, I'm batting 1,000. It's been groovy. Welcome to Life Mastery Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. As always, before we get started, I like to get myself centered and situated and maybe roll those shoulders a little bit. And let's take in a deep breath. And let that breath out and think about all the things that you're grateful for. Just pick a couple, not all of them. Just pick a couple and really hone in on those. And let that breath out with a big and let your essence just flow out into the universe. Let's do that one more time. In with a deep breath. And let that breath out with a big and just really get connected to that which gives you purpose. There we go. Jackie's got a big smile on her face, and so does our guest, Larry. But before we get started with that, I want to welcome my co-host, Jackie Bailey. Jackie is doing some amazing things with little people.
Yes, children.
Children, and you're getting
not short people.
Yeah,
but they're short too.
They are short, and they're little human beings.
Yes,
they are. And you're getting ready to do a summer camp, and that's coming up. How many students do you have?
42 at last count.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you need an assistant?
Yeah, actually.
Actually.
That would be nice.
So this is going to be an 8-week course?
Well, there's 4 sessions of 2 weeks each.
Got it.
And so the first 2 weeks, which is session 1, is going to be a focus on storytelling. become a storytelling Captain Marvel. And then the second session is going to be the great debate. Talk about tools in persuasive speaking, how to win an argument with your parents, and do some debate. And then the third session is going to be a model UN of sorts. So there will be some presentation about different countries that you'll represent, maybe some world problems and how to solve those problems. And then the fourth session is going to be how to become a champion speaker, and then maybe even get on a TEDx kind of situation. We'll write a TEDx talk, and then we'll put everybody's videos up on YouTube.
So has this been evolving? Let's see. Now let's explore this a little bit, because 2 weeks ago, you and I went to Vancouver. We went to University of British Columbia and watched a kids speech contest. And you and I both noted that a lot of the topics, now these kids were from 8 years old up to like 16. And I think we listened to like 35 speeches that day. And the topic that was very prevalent was climate change and the planet Earth and all things considering what's going on in our environment. Were you inspired by that?
No, I was inspired by that, but I didn't, my curriculum was already established.
Okay.
Prior to that. Yeah.
I was just the minute you said that, I was like, I wonder.
Yeah. I wonder. No, I don't have the bandwidth to change that quickly and write some new curriculum. So, but yeah, I'm going to do the Model UN because that was a special request from one of the owners of the business that's hosting these summer camps.
Wow.
So I've never really done one before. So I'm going off of some information that I found, but my understanding is that it's an opportunity for participants to become delegates to a particular country.
Wow.
And then they discover what in their country could be improved. Maybe it's just clean water. Maybe it's wells, they need wells or something like that. And they bring this problem to a delegation or a committee of delegates. And they discuss how this committee can solve these problems, and they prioritize how these solutions will happen. And then they have to present their ideas, present their solutions. So there is a lot of speaking involved, but it's just on a different wavelength than just giving a speech.
Wow, that is so cool. I'm getting chicken skin when you describe that, because you're creating future leaders, and these kind of skills that you're teaching these kids, that's not taught in public schools. This isn't taught, they don't learn this from their parents, and it's just amazing some of the results that you've shared. It's a pretty cool deal, Jackie. I commend you totally. And for those that would like to learn more, go to JackieBaileySpeaks.com, and you can find that link on the Life Mastery Radio website at www.lifemasteryradio.net. There you will find all of our guests, links to the podcast or the YouTube channel, all things Life Mastery Radio, past and present. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. Jackie does a great job every week letting us know who's been on the show, who's coming on the show. And she always highlights the show with an interesting blog post, and use that blog post. And many of the guests have commented on it, and it's really cool. So big shout out to Jackie Bailey. She's pretty cool.
Yay, Jackie Bailey.
Yay, Jackie Bailey. Okay, is there anything else while you're on the website, you can check out my book. My book's pretty cool. I get a lot of great comments about my book, and I know that if you purchase that book from Amazon and read it, you will just love it. And you'll love it so much that you want to go and give me some feedback on Amazon, so that, it's kind of self-populating. The more activity, the more action, the better it is. So I know you'll love it. It'll be a great gift to you or somebody that you know. Okay, are we done with housekeeping?
I think so.
Have we swept the floor? Have we cleaned the windows? I think we're good to go.
Don't look around my place too much.
I know. You can't really see in my background, but I've been a busy guy. Okay, Our guest today is Larry J. Snyder, and Larry is from the Seattle area. He kind of popped up on our Jackie and I's radar, and we researched him a little bit, and oh my gosh, we have the same friends. We roll in the same circles. There's so much in common. I had no idea. So that was kind of cool. He is from the Seattle area. Both Jackie and I are from the Seattle area, and Larry has spent most of his life either listening to or telling stories. With a 31 flavor past, I just love that, Larry has settled into a rhythm of life that includes helping domestic and international causes with philanthropy and fundraising support. His own efforts are inspired by the examples he witnesses in others. Larry wrote a book, Which One Am I? 12 Extraordinary People Like You. This is Larry's second book, and Larry's attempt to share the stories of a dozen human beings who have inspired him by impacting the world in a lasting and meaningful way. Welcome to the show, Larry. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Look at that big smile. He's ready to go. We're ready to rock and roll. So right out of the gate, Larry, I got the big question. And this will set the precedence, I think, for the rest of the show.
Okay.
What's it all about, Larry? What is it all about?
If your question is pointed towards the book, Which One Am I? What's it all about? It really is, the way the genesis of the book was really, I wanted to write a story about my mother and to my mother, who was an extraordinary woman, and so much of who I am as a human being is really the qualities that she instilled in myself and my 5 sisters. I also have a wonderful father, and that he also gave me so many gifts. So Which One Am I is started as an opportunity to tell my mother's story, but when I realized that there was really many more than 12, but 12 individuals that were close to me gave me an opportunity to tell their story. And what it really came down to was there were 4 qualities that my mother embodied that were gifts that she left us with, and those were evident in these 12 people that will all have their own individual gifts, but they also embodied those 4 parts of life that made them extremely attractive to me, because I saw my mother and them.
Here's the book. Pretty cool book. Da-da-da-da.
Hey, that's crazy. Look, I have one too.
Jackie.
Hey, don't leave me out.
So, Larry, I'm reading the book. I kind of scanned through it, and the stories. I really read the last chapter, and especially about your mom, and I was very intrigued, because I think we all are a walking embodiment of our mother, but you really gave your mother some credence to who you are today, and I think that it's really important, and maybe you could speak to this a little bit, that maybe we reflect on that. I know your book in the back has some exercises, but I have to understand, I have to believe that just in you rethinking that and writing about it and, reflecting on growing up with your mom, it gave you some great insight about who you are today.
And who I want to become. I think part of the really remarkable thing that's happened is that I realize I'm really only about 50% of the way built out here as a human being, because most of what I'm doing from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep is continuing to try to be like her, and to continuing to try and share who she was in my daily life, because in a way it keeps her alive in my soul.
Right.
And so one of the big challenges of her life was that the last 48 months of her life was a path of vascular dementia. And so the original title of this book, before I realized that there were these 12 other people, was called A Journey to Remember. And it's part of it was she had this incredibly remarkable life that had so much effect on so many different people. And unfortunately, she forgot it all in the last 48 months of her life. But one thing stands true to today, even though she's not with us any longer, and that is I remember.
Right. And
I remember what
those
she
people
was
do.
like.
Yeah.
So I'm basically out in the world trying to celebrate the life that she unfortunately forgot. And that's the disaster that is dementia.
Well, I think it goes deeper too, because she left a legacy, right? She
No
had
question.
an impact. She had an impact on whether those people realize it or not, but in helping to form who they are today and who they will be in the future, and in exploring that. You know, for me, my mother, she sang to me when I was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been involved in choruses and quartets my entire life.
Yeah.
So here's something I can tell you. When I go and watch her chorus perform,
Mm-hmm.
I can hear my mother, and it totally blows me out of 60 women how I can hear my mom's voice. It's pretty cool.
And I think Jackie recognizes too that the value of music is truly it's heaven sent messages, and there's no substitute for that. The spoken word is beautiful, but the musical word is it really transcends so many parts of my life. But I don't think I'm alone here. Right,
yeah. No, I think music can change your attitude in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, it doesn't matter how tired I am at the end of a day, how frustrated I am about perhaps an event or a situation. If someone turns on some music, or I walk into a room where music is being played, I instantly want to dance, and my spirit goes up, and I turn positive, and everything else that's bothering me just melts away. The music can do that to you. And it affects so many other emotions and attitudes in the same way for different.
So here about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, there was certain things going on in my life, and it was kind of a rattle. It rattled my cage pretty good. And I'm talking to Jackie, and Jackie says, "Well, have you been listening to music?" And I hadn't even considered that. And so, yeah, no. And actually, Jackie, what I was doing was turning the radio off so that I could wallow in that grief and pain. And so then I forced myself to turn it back on, and it did. It calmed the soul. So it was pretty cool.
Sometimes we do not need to hear ourselves think. Right.
But sometimes we, it's amazing to me that sometimes we want to wallow too.
Yeah, right? But that stuff in your head, that's not music.
Totally.
Right, Jackie?
Right, absolutely.
That's not music.
It's not music. It's the opposite of that.
I have to imagine, Larry, too, you wrote this great book about 12 extraordinary people that you thought were extraordinary in your life.
Yeah.
But it must have been hard to narrow it down to 12. Why did you stop at 12?
Well, one of the things that
of course, the book's only going to get so big, but I mean,
well, actually, let me explain, because this is kind of one of those things that turned out funny but wasn't funny at the time. So the first book that I wrote, called 10 Years in Tuscany, I used a really great team, a graphic designer who was the book designer, a publisher who's a great publisher, and then an editor. And I knew that I wanted to have this book come out on June 12th last year, so 2018. But in order to do that, I had to back up to the beginning of the year, identify, this was once I concepted it and got a deal done with a publisher. And so I set the book launch date before I had the book done. So the answer to your question is because the book launch was on June 12th. And if you have a book launch with no books, it can be a real downer. So anyway, the reason
Music
why
won't
there's
even solve that, right?
What's that?
Music won't even solve that.
I think I could go so many places with the answer to that. But the bottom line is that I did find more than 12. But when I sent out the research questions, I was hoping that 12 would be that number, because that was not only the length of the book that we somewhat settled on, that each extraordinary individual that I wrote about would have a certain number of pages. But as you see in the book, there's a photo of each one. And also there's a preface, and obviously the back end of the book, there's some exercises to help you realize. And again, the title of the book's very intentional, 12 Extraordinary People Like You.
Right.
Because in my opinion, and I don't think I'm alone here, once you start helping people really look at what they bring to the table of life, everyone has, and this was one of the qualities that my mother went out in the world and shared, everybody is good at something.
Right.
And I think the third or fourth time she had to come to school and pick me up from the principal's office, she probably realized what I was good at, and not what she was hoping for. But again, her love of life was really helping others understand that they are good at something. And that's a beautiful thing, because that's what makes you extraordinary. Extraordinary is not just reserved for Nobel Prize winners, right?
Right.
Extraordinary is who you uniquely are, who you were meant to be. And that experience is of great value to the human experience. And I spend a lot of time thinking about the human experience, because the human experience for every person is different, but it's also, the human experience is very much about what your extraordinary, what you bring to the extraordinary life is,
Right.
that's uniquely you.
And I think that's really important today, because there's a lot of younger people that are exploring that.
Yeah.
And you have to imagine they look around and they see all these things that are already done, right? And there's no hope or insight that I could do something like that. And we have these huge conglomerates like the one called Amazon. And, there's a store you can buy anything, but yet a person who is talented and good at something that thinks maybe they could have a store or something, there's no hope for them to even be able to compete.
Well, I think here's my perspective. So my work, and we haven't talked about this yet, in West Africa has taught me that there is so much left to do, that we are just absolutely at the very beginning of our organic humanity in the United States. So my message to young people is the same as the message that was given to me by my grandfather. And that is that you, by being born in this country, were literally born on the 50-yard line.
Right.
And the best thing we can do is turn around and reach back to the people that were born on the 5-yard line and help bring them forward. And by doing that right off the bat helps you understand that the first gift you have that's extraordinary is the ability to recognize how fortunate you are.
Yeah, right.
And it only gets better from there. So there's a lot of room. There's plenty of room.
Totally. Yeah, that's my point. And I think that's what your book helps bring forward, is look at all these cool things that these people are doing, and they're just regular Joes, right? They're following their dream, they're following their heart. I was going to comment, you have a great way of completing a goal, and that's start with the end in mind, right?
Yeah, well, that's a Stephen Covey. That's a Stephen Covey principle that was drilled into my head in college. The only way to get anything done on a timeline is to begin with the end in mind to
And don't change that, right? Yeah.
Envision what it was like. And not everybody thinks that way. Believe me, when you ask a publisher, a editor, and a graphic designer to commit to a June 12th book launch before the book is done, let me tell you, there's a fair amount of advocacy and belief in me, right? They have to believe in me, because I'm asking them to come on this journey and put part of their professional reputation at stake. But on June 12th, 120 of us gathered in a conference facility in Bellevue, and we handed out the first 150 books, and to the people who came to this book launch. But do you know why there was only 150 books?
Why?
Because they printed them 3 days before, and 150 printed.
Both Jackie and I have written books, and
Yeah.
I can tell you that I think you'd think it was a simple process, but I think
No.
I think it was a 2-year deal for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it'd take you, Jackie.
Well, it was a 4-year start to finish, but it was a different book actually that I ended up writing than the one I started.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's that too.
Yeah.
But this-
so Larry, it sounds like though you've recently had your first anniversary since publishing your book.
Oh, totally.
Happy anniversary.
Da-da-da-da. Happy
Yay.
anniversary.
Actually, a friend of mine named Anne, a wonderful Facebook friend, sent me a happy anniversary reminder, and it really is such a blessing to be able to go through this process of sharing. But it's also something that I think all authors need to know before they put a book out, and that is that once your book is released, it's out there. What you have shared with the world and your thoughts and the people that you've included in it, you can't come back. You have to only go forward. And again, just beware of that, because
That's
it's not
true.
yeah, no, it's not writing and releasing all of your thoughts out into the world is not for everybody.
Right.
But I'm so grateful again to have this team from Iron Twine Press and We Graphics, and Catherine Lennox, the editor, for coming on this journey with me. Because as you know, as an author, you can't do this alone, nor should you. And part of the joy of the experience is not always joyful, but is having this team. Because if you had to do everything yourself, in my opinion, it would never get done.
Yeah, it wouldn't never happen.
Yeah.
Jackie, I feel like we're riding over the top of you. You got.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Well, Larry, we talked about part of the title of your book, which is the 12 Extraordinary People, but which one am I? That's an odd title. Where does that phrasing come from? Which one am I?
So on the back of the book, grab your book and look.
Da-da-da. I have the book right here.
Okay. On the back.
Yes,
Turn
on
it
the
over.
back.
Okay. On the back of the book, there is a picture. In 2016, I gratefully accepted an opportunity to go on a 1-week visit to Sierra Leone with an organization called Schools for Salone, who I've helped with their philanthropy. And they asked me to come with them on this 1-week tour. So traveling in West Africa, first of all, is not for everybody, but it is one of those things, as I referenced before, that is probably about the best perspective experience I've ever had before in my life. I got to see just, again, how fortunate I am in terms of all of the choices that I have in life every day. But also what I got to see is how people, human beings, can be incredibly satisfied with what we consider so little.
Yeah.
But what they have that we don't is they have each other.
Right.
And what I mean by that is everything still happens by community there.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so during this tour, on the first day 2, after we'd driven 6 hours out into the jungle, Sierra Leone is in West Africa, but it's part of a weather pattern that's very wet. So in the eastern part of the country, it's all jungle. So the first day, we go to visit the first school that this group has built that is very near and dear to the founder of the organization, and she wanted to be sure that I saw it and experienced it. And anyway, so we are standing on the edge of this play field, and it's not, I use these terms loosely because it's just really a field is what it is. And there's a beautiful green, it's a school that's green. The tribal colors are green and yellow. And it, again, is the first school that this group built. And the kids are all lined up by grade in front of the school in their uniforms, which again are green, and they have the yellow trim on them. And they're singing the national anthem. And they're singing it very, very loud. And it's not because we're guests there. They're singing it loud because that's what they do. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the song, the very end of their national anthem is, "And in the land we love, Sierra Leone." And so from that, then they dispersed, and they're all running around the field. And I have my camera under my arm. I'm a photographer and as well. And I was told by the organization that I had free range to take as many pictures as I wanted and of whoever, but that authorization was given to me in the United States, not by the tribal chiefs in Sierra Leone, right? And I was told by other photographers, be careful, because if you lose your camera, it's gone, and you're not going to have any other way to document your trip. So I reluctantly removed my lens cap, and it took some landscape pictures of palm trees, but I really wanted to take pictures of the kids. So anyway, these kids are all running around, and they see this tall Caucasian man standing there with 2 or 3 other visitors. And a group of these girls comes up to me, and they're between the ages of probably, 7 and 10 years old. And one of them says to me, "Snap me," which is a term that I haven't heard forever. Kids use that term now because of Snapchat, but snap me is an old photography term from a long time ago when they used to screw bulbs in.
Right.
To the hood of the flash. Snap a picture. Anyway, so I got down on my knee, got the settings just right, and that picture on the back is the picture that I took. And we are out in the middle of the jungle in Sierra Leone. There's no power, there's no technology. And so most of these kids had never seen a digital camera before, where they could see, where I could turn a camera around and show them their picture.
Right.
And so the 4 girls are standing there looking at it, and the youngest one is she can't stop staring at the screen. And the 3 others ran away, and it's just me and her. The other 3 visitors that I was with had walked away. And we're standing in the middle of this field, and she's looking at the back of the screen and looking at my eyes and looking at the back of the screen and looking at my eyes. And she said to me, "Which one am I?" Mm. So she had never seen herself. A vivid image of herself, because they don't have any glass. Yeah. They have no reflective surfaces. They don't have mirrors. The most vivid image she'd ever seen of herself was in a mud puddle, but there's no vividity to that, right? There's just an outline or almost a silhouette. So anyway, what happened from that is, I went to the other side of the earth to have my life changed that day, because I'm not joking.
No
for every few minutes for the rest of that trip, I started asking myself, which one am I? And because that girl, remember, her whole identification of herself is the face of her soul, not the face of her head.
Right.
She thinks from the inside out. And so I really credit that little girl for giving me the opportunity to write this book. Not because of the title, but because I started looking at which one am I, but then as I kind of started gathering ideas, it was, well, which one are they and which one are they? And if I didn't know what they looked like on the outside, well, what could they tell me about how they look on the inside?
Nice. That is such an inspiring story.
Yeah.
But it's not my story.
No,
right?
I totally get it. Yeah.
I'm the messenger here for that little girl.
Yeah. You just never know. And that's part of being awake or being alert or paying attention, because you just never know the subtle message that might put a spark in your own heart. You were going to say something, Jackie.
Well, I was just going to comment about how we live, like you say, in such an abundant, area. And yet you go halfway around the world and learn a lesson from someone who has nothing of merit as far as possession goes, right? But she knew what her soul looked like. She knew who she was. She just never knew what she looked like. But can we answer that question? Can we answer who we really are? What we are inside, what we look like inside? It just, that was, it's an interesting, very moving perspective. And it helps me even more so understand the book and why you wrote this book, because you see something in others that they perhaps don't see in themselves, as you describe extraordinary. Mm-hmm. That just means that we are extraordinary, right? And it doesn't take money. It doesn't take status or privilege to be able to be extraordinary. It just takes being who we are inside, taking what our soul says you need to do to help someone else, and then we can become extraordinary. It's a very simple process, just as that little girl learned simply what she looked like on the outside. You know, it's just, I was very moved by that. So
I can tell. I do want to take just a second to let you know, if you've just tuned in or you're watching this on Facebook Live, our guest today is Larry Snyder, and Larry has written this amazing book right here. Get your copy. It's on Amazon, or you can go to his website at larryjsnyder.com and check him out, check his stuff out. And all the links are on Life Mastery Radio. You are listening to Life Mastery Radio with Todd and Jackie. Okay, there's our commercial break. How'd I do, Jackie? How's that work?
And now more words from our sponsor.
More words from our sponsor. So, Larry, I mean, this is a really cool book. You've documented 12 amazing people that you just said something about how getting people to realize how extraordinary they are. And in the back of your book, you have these little exercises, and maybe you could highlight a couple of those. The one that really jumps out at me is, and I don't think you wrote it this way in the book, but I did do some research and it came out like this, I think. I'm paraphrasing. How have you let somebody know how extraordinary they are in writing?
So that's a question directly focused on my mother's life. As I mentioned before, she was really good at helping other people realize that they were good at something. And the way that she did that was, and let me give you a little bit of background on my mom's professional life, because this will help. So she ran a preschool and daycare center in the toughest part of Seattle called Holly Park. So if you know where Rainier Beach is, Rainier Beach is in the south end of Seattle, but within Rainier Beach, on the edge of that, is called Holly Park. And it's traditionally been a really tough neighborhood. It's gone through some great changes. It's better now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
But I want you to imagine 99% of those children that were coming to her school were DSHS kids. They had a different name for them then. And that this was the height of the crack cocaine era. So most of those kids had either one or both parents in prison. Most of them were living in a really chaotic atmosphere. And most of them were not getting their nutritional, spiritual, sleep needs met. So what my mom figured out is that she gave them their best meal. She gave them their best love that they most likely had. But the other thing that she gave them was this opportunity to realize, even at 7 or 8 years old, what they were good at. Maybe they were good at Foursquare out on the playground. Maybe they were good at making things out of Play-Doh. Maybe they were good at helping the cook downstairs put just the right amount of peanut butter on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so that question is intentionally written because, again, I believe that extraordinary is not Nobel Prize winning member of our society. Those people are super extraordinary, right? But all of us, and my mom did this, allowed us to have that one thing recognized about them. And that's the genesis and the purpose of that question in the book. Right. What are you good at? But more importantly, what are you doing to help other people recognize what makes them extraordinary?
So what does that look like, Larry? If and especially, you talked about actually doing it in writing. So is that like a card or is it a note? And I think you were explicit in saying in your own handwriting. Am I correct?
Well, that's part of why I put those exercises in the book, is I wanted the book to be not just read it, put it on the shelf, and move on to the next book. There's a reason why, and I credit the Sonia, the graphic designer, for her creative piece of that. She was able to make those pages specific to you taking out a pen and writing, fill in the space.
Right.
Again, the subtitle of the book, 12 Extraordinary People Like You, to me, the most important 2 words in the title of the book are like you. In other words, you have these extraordinary capabilities already. I don't have to tell you what they are because they're yours. And you get the joy of that discovery process. And I just really believe that life for everyone has some existing extraordinary value, and that this is not an exercise in going out and changing the world, because you already have that ability to do so.
Right.
And I wonder if, as you say, those people that have won Nobel Prizes, that they're super extraordinary, but I wonder if they're actually just as extraordinary as we are, but somehow they got recognized for it. Because there are a lot of people out there that don't recognize their own extraordinariality, if that's a word.
Hey, that's a
extraordinariness.
Yeah, let me look in the dictionary. Go ahead.
And perhaps, and well, I will say for certain, until I read your book, I didn't know about most of those people that you saw as extraordinary.
Yeah.
Now I have a different perspective on those individuals too. Sometimes it takes another person to point out the ways that we are extraordinary, because we're just going about our lives and we may be really good people and we're doing really great things, but until someone recognizes it like your mother did,
Yeah.
we really don't know. But when that happens, it is a life-changing experience to realize that we've done something. So my question to you then is, Larry, is how do we learn our extraordinariness? What do we have to do to be able to recognize that in ourselves? Or what can we do to become that extraordinary person?
If I didn't ask you to buy the book, I wouldn't be doing my job. So, but I mean this in a sincere way that
Placement. It's all about placement.
Right. I think that what I'm hopeful for is by shining the light on people that don't necessarily wake up and call themselves extraordinary, by me shining the light on them, that allows them to see that their effect on other people is much greater than they think it is. And so that's part of the answer to your question. The second part of the answer to your question for me is, who made you that way?
Right.
How did you get this way?
Jackie Bailey did it. I'm blaming Jackie Bailey.
Yeah. So when people ask me a question like what you just asked me, my response inside before it even comes out of my mouth is, how did you get this way? So the way to, in my opinion, to figure out what your extraordinary gifts are is to figure out how you got to the way that you are. I've done that work and I continue to do that work. It's my mother, it's my father, it's my grandfather, it's these 12 people who have let me into their lives. It's the girl in Sierra Leone. What makes me extraordinary in my extraordinary life are the gifts that I've been given by these people. And I think it's all around us. We just really have to take maybe even a harder look at the value of the people around us, especially those closest to us, right, like our family, like our spouses, especially our kids, because who gave them their gifts? We did, yeah, right? So by us investing our lives in our children's lives, we're kind of paying forward what our parents and our grandparents gave us as gifts.
Well, learning that can be so astounding. I mean, you think about that little girl in Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
She has no idea that a simple question to you has influenced.
And one of the heartbreakers of, you're right. And one of the heartbreakers of this, so that was in 2016. I went back in 2018. So last year, the reason why we did the book launch on June 12th was because I was leaving 2 weeks later to go to Africa. And one of my big missions, in addition to opening the school there that's dedicated to my mother, that was the mission of that trip. My generous friends and I built a school and a community center that is dedicated to my mother's life. But one of the missions of that trip, in addition to that, which was the main purpose of it, was to go back to that village and hand that girl a book and tell her it didn't happen. It couldn't, because there was some tribal violence up in the area and the embassy said, you're not coming up here. So we couldn't go to the northeast of the country. But I'm hopeful in 2020, with another purpose, going back to Sierra Leone, that we'll have that chance this time. I'll keep trying until I get it done. Let's put it that way.
Now, do they speak French in Sierra Leone, or is it an African language?
So in the village itself, and the schools are all programmed in English. English is the world language. But before the school gets there, they don't have English as a language. They have the tribal language, and the national language is Creole. So, for example, when we did this school dedication last summer, I spoke at a large tribal celebration of regional gathering, and I was speaking English to a interpreter that was speaking the national language, and then another interpreter was speaking the tribal language.
Wow.
And so this is where nonverbal communication made such a big difference for me, because I spent most of my time speaking in English with my hand over my heart, and they get that. That's very clear to them. There's some universal.
Well, if you ever want someone to go help teach public speaking,
I knew this would get Jackie jacked up. I just knew it.
Because after you realize who you are, then you have to share your message to the world.
No question. The gifts that you have for others must be given. And it's just such a blessing to be able to do that, because that's the honor that I live now every day. Is I've been given these gifts from my mother, from my father, from my grandfather, from these 12 people, from that little girl, and I'm implored to share them. For me to just hang on to them would not be right, in my opinion.
Yeah, you came in with this purpose and you've discovered it, and now it's giving those gifts away. And yeah, it's totally about the deal. You know, Larry, there's some practices that you do as well. Like myself, I get up in the morning and I decide it's going to be a groovy day, and usually the day turns out to be pretty groovy. But I was intrigued. You know, I reflect on my day and where I've been wrong. I try and make it right, or at least recognize that I need to make it right if I did somebody in, a different way or something, and I need to apologize. But you have taken that to another level, and I find this very intriguing, is you actually consider, how did I make a difference in somebody else's life today?
Well, when you fly to Africa, you have a lot of time to think. It takes about 40 hours to get home. So you have to go from West Africa to somewhere in Europe and wait, and then go somewhere else in Europe and then wait, and then fly over the Atlantic, and hopefully you end up in Seattle, but most likely end up on the East Coast of the United States, and wait, and then you get home. And during that whole time, you have a lot of time to think. And so one of the questions that helps me really validate the value of a day is when I put my head on my pillow at night. I've said my prayers, I've said goodnight to my spouse, it's time to go to sleep. But I have time for one more question. And that question is this. And again, I have to point it back to that little girl in Sierra Leone, because it's kind of where this came from. The question is, what happened today that I'll never forget?
Yeah, that was it.
If I can't thoroughly, quickly imagine what happened today that I'll never forget, I feel a little bit guilty about the day that I just burned, because I won't get it back.
Yeah.
And so I really wake up in the morning asking myself, which one am I? And I go to bed at night asking myself, what happened today that I'll never forget?
That's cool.
Those bookends really allow me to value my time more than I ever have. And I want to take responsibility for my time. And I want to make the best use of that time. And what I've figured out is that the things that are easiest for me to answer and to remember, what happened today that I'll never forget, is how I served other people.
How can I serve
myself?
Yeah. Okay.
I think Jackie and I are both in tune with that. We belong to, well, you of course knows that, but we belong to that organization called Toastmasters, and it's all about some of these principles that you've talked about, with the evaluation and really getting a person a clear understanding of how much a difference they can make. And that's why I'm so in love with that program. It's just amazing to me.
It was 8 years or 6.5 years of really important time for me was Toastmasters back in the 1980s. So
I'm in 10 now, and I don't see an end. 10.
You're in 10?
Good for you.
Well, I think you've got a couple more than me, right, Jackie?
Are you talking about clubs, or what are you talking about?
In
10 years.
Yeah, years.
Oh, yeah. I've been in.
Oh, no, I wouldn't be members.
I was like thinking that's crazy, man.
I have done 7. I have done 7.
No,
that's great.
I think I've been 10 or 11 years. It'll be 11 years this year.
Well,
But Larry, Jackie got me started in leadership, really,
That's
in
great.
district leadership.
Yep.
7 or 8 years ago, with just a simple question: "Hey, would you do this job?"
That's how it works in Toastmasters.
But you got to say yes.
Well, nobody says no in
Nobody says no.
Toastmasters.
Oh,
Well,
sometimes
they do say no in Toastmasters.
They wouldn't be there unless they wanted to be. So,
But that's where the extraordinary comes in,
sure.
is when you say yes, no matter
Right.
how intimidating it might seem, no matter how unlike you it might seem. It's those opportunities to say yes. And I learned a long time ago that when I've discovered any talent or skill or ability that I have, I discover it while I was serving
Right.
somebody else. It wasn't just because I was sitting in my living room listening to music or whatever and thought, hey, I'm really good at this. I learned what I was good at because I was serving somebody else.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
it happens every occasion. It's 100% the only way I know what I'm about.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's another program that I belong to, or have belonged to, or am part of, and that's a big part of it. To get away from yourself and to get out of yourself, help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Big deal.
Well, and that's been the focus of my life for about 15 years in terms of philanthropy, is helping nonprofits raise money. And that looks different for different organizations. I'm a licensed auctioneer, so I host a lot of meaningful charity auctions. And Toastmasters really helped me have the confidence to do that, because I have to stand up in front of audiences sometimes for 4 to 5 hours at a time and host events. And let me tell you, I rely on some of those very basic, fundamental, foundational tools that I learned in Toastmasters to be a good fundraising host and auctioneer. And it's not easy, especially when I have to do sometimes 4 days in a row, a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday event. Again, I go back to those foundational values that I learned in Toastmasters, and I was a member of National Speakers Association also. And again, that education has been fundamentally absolutely game changer for my life.
It will last the rest of your life. It's a return on investment that you just can't go wrong with.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, people. We have about 2 minutes left. I want to thank you, Larry, for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
And remind our listeners that all the links we talked about are at www.lifemasteryradio.net. And you can find Larry at larryjsnyder.com. And Jackie at JackieBaileySpeaks.com, and you can find out more about her summer camps and making a huge difference in the lives of little people. Oh, young people.
Young adults.
Young
Yeah.
adults. There we go.
Jackie, I'm really excited to learn more about your
I figured
programs,
you would.
and so I look forward to talking offline about that.
Yeah.
A connection has been made.
Well, and also maybe there's a way I can impact that, because I definitely believe that one of the most important things that happens is getting started young. I was lucky enough to get started really, really young in family business, and that gave me a huge head start. But had I not had that mentorship like what you're offering, it would have never happened.
Yeah, it's about having good experiences at scary things that make things less scary when you're an adult.
Here's what I believe. I believe that Jackie is forming the next not the next, but one of our future presidents of the year. I totally believe that, and that's the way that works.
Yeah.
Good.
I hope
that's about all we have time.
And I better give me props.
Oh,
we're here for you.
That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Larry was a great guy. Jackie was a great co-host. I had a blast, and I know those other two had a blast too. I want to leave you with this one last thought. I would really like for you to make it a great day, because it's all about choice. And choose to check out Larry and Jackie as soon as you get a chance. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.